Way this hour. The trial began just 3 weeks ago, and lines of investigators and forensic experts have been called to the stand by the prosecution in an effort to prove their theory. By the way, you're looking at live pictures there from Orlando. Their theory is that the 25-year-old mother killed her daughter Kaylee by knocking her out with chloroform and putting duct tape over her nose and mouth. They allege the Orlando mother then put the body in garbage bags and stored it in her trunk before dumping it in woods near her home. So to help us understand the science behind all the evidence, we want to go straight to medical examiner Dr. Michael Hunter, who is following this case very closely. As an active medical examiner and board-certified forensic pathologist, Doctor has routinely he's been routinely involved in the investigation of suspicious deaths. So, Doctor, I want to ask you, how do you determine if, at least in this case, a child suffocated from duct tape that might have been wrapped around her mouth and around her head? How would you know?
Right. You know, the prosecution is putting that theory out there because of the location of the duct tape on the mouth or in the vicinity of the mouth. Now, homicides like that in young children certainly do happen, where obstruction of the airway occurs because of the placement of the tape. But can you say that for certainty? I mean, there are other reasons why duct tape may be used on victims of a homicide post-mortem. It can be used for binding, more easily transporting a body from one location to the other. I can see where it could be used to simply stem the flow of some fluids that might come from the mouth and nose post-mortem, and that can occur very early following death.
And how do you link back the body of Caylee Anthony to Casey? Because yesterday we learned that there weren't any fingerprints found on the duct tape, for example. So how do you make that link, if you can make that link?
Yeah, well, you're not going to expect to see fingerprints on duct tape where the remains have been for 6 months. It would be extraordinarily unlikely that you're going to have prints. How you tie her back is the scene. The scene, I think, strongly suggests, and I think the state has proved that Kaylee was actually in a vehicle at the house for some period of time, probably several days. That links her back. There's some testimony today from an expert who did actually examine the tape and found a heart shape that she testified about, which may actually tie back once again to some heart-shaped stickers that are present in that location. So the evidence is, you know, you have to look at the scene. You have to look at the scene and then extrapolate what that may mean.
Got it. So the fingerprints not being on the duct tape isn't surprising. I also want to ask you about this because obviously in your line of work, you know quite a bit about decomposition. Tiny flies in the trunk of Casey's car apparently fit the prosecution's theory that a body was stored in the trunk. So does that sound like it could be in line with decomposition and remnants of it in the trunk?
Sure. I mean, I think the state has shown, I think, clearly that a body has been in that trunk for a period of time. The carpet has been analyzed with material that has been testified to being from a decomposed human body. There's hair that is consistent with Kaylee's that has features of decomposition. Once again, that of a decomposing body. And you brought up the entomologist. Flies have a life cycle, and the entomologist can look at that life cycle and what's left in that vicinity to estimate as far as how long that person may have been in the trunk. He's saying anywhere from, say, 3 to 5 days, much longer where she was subsequently found. And
just very quickly, before we have to let you go here, you mentioned the hair. The hair that was found, there is some question about whether or not that hair might have been from Kaylee when she was alive or from Kaylee when she was already deceased. Can you make that determination? How do you test that?
Right. There was a feature of a particular hair that has some DNA evidence which links back to Kaylee. And what I'm talking about is there's black banding that the hair specialist is testifying to, saying you don't get that type of banding material on the hair unless it comes from a decomposed body. Now, the defense is certainly arguing the point that, testimony like this hasn't been offered in court often at all. How specific is it? How comfortable are you testifying to it? But I think it makes a lot of sense that you're putting a hair from a decomposed body that is linked to Kaylee in the trunk of the car. So they're trying to bring her into that vehicle and to show that she is the source of that decomposition in that vehicle.
All right, Dr. Michael Hunter, thank you so much for your expertise. Really appreciate you coming on today and helping us understand a lot of that science that we've been hearing now for weeks in the courtroom. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.